Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. Today we're revisiting the Vikings, which is going to be really confusing if you didn't see last week's video. We've been talking about the benefits of rowing their own boats, and there's another one that's not as obvious but still served those Vikings really well when they got off the boat. And that's their unity, kind of a team chemistry. This group of guys was very accustomed to working side by side together, coordinating with one another, depending on each other to keep the oars in sync and everybody doing what they need to do at the right times. So when they rushed out into battle, they knew each other really well and they operate like a well-oiled machine. No one thought of himself as a lone warrior because he knew full well he had never been a lone rower. They knew that the group depended on them and they depended on the group. They didn't need a commanding officer telling them what to do because they knew how to communicate with each other verbally and non-verbally, so they worked as one. This is really the biggest aspect where the church should mirror the Vikings. Even though you don't find many verses in the Bible about rowing or swinging broadswords, you do find a lot about unity. As in, it's like surprising how little teaching we really hear about it, because it's clearly a big stinking deal to God. To give just one example, let's look at John chapter 17. To set the stage for you, Jesus is staring down his impending crucifixion, and he knows full well this is his last chance to pray and prepare for it. Surprisingly, he spends a big chunk of that time praying for his guys more than himself, specifically for their unity. Picking up at verse 20, it says, "I'm praying not only for these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me through their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. I've given them the glory you gave me, so they may be one as we are one. I am in them, and you are in me. May they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me, and that you love them as much as you love me." Don't miss that. In the span of just a few verses, some translations it's back-to-back sentences, Jesus prayed twice that they may be one so the world may know that you sent me. Jesus explicitly declared that the unity of his followers from that day forward would be the thing that convinced the world that he was sent from God. Does that sound important to you? Why don't we talk about it more? Probably because we've done a pretty lousy job of it historically, and we don't seem to be getting any better at it than previous generations. Because here's the thing about living and working and even going to battle in unity. It'd be easy if we all got along and believed exactly the same things. But Jesus prayed for us because he knew that would never be the case. I mean, for crying out loud, look at his own crew. You've got impetuous Peter, who specializes in saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. You've got James and John, who were such loose cannons that Jesus nicknamed them the Sons of Thunder. He's got a zealot, the most fiercely, violently patriotic group in Israel. And he's got a tax collector, who are the people universally seen as traitors to Israel. And every time he turns around, they're jockeying for position, they're arguing over who is greatest. No wonder he's praying for them to all get along. But Jesus wants people from different backgrounds, different outlooks on life, different strengths and weaknesses to all come together in such perfect unity that he described it as being one. And so here we approach the real challenge. How do you walk in unity with someone that you don't agree with, don't understand, maybe don't even like? Best way I know goes back to those Vikings, and remember why you're on this boat in the first place. When we're on a mission together, a lot of the details become insignificant. Even the things that don't completely fall off the radar are still way less important than the mission. In Christian circles, we waste our time arguing over style of music or what translation of the Bible to use, or pre-trib versus post-trib, or predestination versus free will. But in light of eternity, none of that stuff matters. What matters is, do you know Jesus? Once you nail that down, do you know anyone else who doesn't know him? They need Jesus too. Tell them about it. That's the mission. Quibbling over anything less than that is not just pointless, but it's actually making your little soapbox issue more important than reaching lost people. That really bothers God, more than I think we realize. Look at what Paul wrote in Titus 3, 9-11. "Avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, quarrels about the law, for they're unprofitable and worthless. As for a person who stirs up division, after warning him once and then twice, have nothing to do with him, knowing that such a person is warped and sinful. He's self-condemned." Now, not only is the divisive person called warped, sinful, and self-condemned, which I'm going to go out on a limb and think that none of us really want to be in that category, but he gets 2 warnings and he's kicked out. Do you realize nothing else in the New Testament gets that treatment? Drunkenness, witchcraft, orgies, they're all called out as bad ideas, but only divisiveness gets 3 strikes and you're out. Now, I fully believe that grace is always there and repentance is an option, but you're going to have to work that out on yourself between you and God, because stirring up division is a gangrene that has to be amputated from the body. The mission is way too important to let that fester. One last thing, don't get this twisted. Unity does not mean uniformity. That's a huge part of what Punk Rock Theologian is all about. God gave you a brain and he wants you to use it. Christianity is not a cult where we're all expected to be exactly the same. Unity does not mean surrendering your identity. Those disciples still had disagreements throughout the rest of the New Testament, but they worked through it because the mission mattered. Go back to those Vikings. Do you really think they all got along like BFFs? Of course not. But they came together for the sake of the mission. I have my own preferences on music and Bible translations and a bunch of theological debates, but none of those are worth fighting over. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. That one's literally the difference between life and death. As my dear friend Scott Federoff used to say, it's not okay. It's not okay that people don't know Jesus. That mission is way more important than our personal taste. We've got a job to do. God put us all on the same team. Let's start acting like it.